Welcome, gamers, to this week's episode of Last Call Gaming. We're episode 214. Today is May 9th. My name is Craig Perales. Joining me, Mandrew.
May 9th is 3 times 3 for Expedition 33.
Oh, look at you always coming up with the fun stuff. So, did want to point out, guys, this show episode was a tad bit later. Definitely my fault. Because I did want to give my buddy TK a shout out. I had a week where a buddy came down from Colorado, and I've known him for over 20 years. It's when I met him in Game Exchange from way back in the day. And he was down, so we spent a lot of time. We actually went and saw a couple movies. He dug through his old, he had some storage stuff at his parents' house. He hooked me up with a lot of Star Wars stuff. He gave me some D&D Star Wars books. Awesome. But we did go and watch. One of the last things me and I did, was this was when Revenge of the Sith came out 20 years ago. Me and him took off work, and we actually watched every showing in the theater. Back to back to back to back. It was cool. It was at the Avi. They hooked us up with free popcorn, free drinks, and they let us go in before everybody else was allowed to go in. So that was kind of cool. So he actually came back down. It aligned with his birthday, and they just happened to be doing the 20th anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. So there's a picture popped up. So we actually got to go see it again. So the last thing I did with them way back then was watch it, and the thing I got to do with them again was watch Revenge of the Sith. So it was really cool. So I wanted to give a big shout out to TK, and that's one of the reasons why we took a big break, amongst other things. Obviously, you can see the room here is a little bit different in terms of the angle. There's a really big dresser and bed in here now. That was a bitch to move. And then we also just had some wild water, some rainstorms that didn't necessarily affect me, but on Andrew's half of town, it was like the Nile, bro.
Destroyed and flooded.
Yeah, so guys, we are back and ready to go. So if you are watching us on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Do it right now. Hey, we will wait. And then we'll keep moving. So if you guys are interested in following us on our social media, our Linktree link is in the description. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X. If you guys are interested in listening to the audio-only version of this podcast, you can find it on any podcast platform of your choice. So with that out of the way, guys, let's dive into our main story, and that is focusing on Clair Obscur Expedition 33, the game that is taking everyone by storm. It is a 2025 turn-based role-playing game, a video game developed by Sandfall Interactive and published by Kepler Interactive, and it launched on April 24th, 2025. Now, this at this point, just so we're clear, Andrew's already beaten the game. I'm as far as Act 2, and a lot of people are kind of saying that this game is kind of too good to be true. It kind of really came out of nowhere. It's getting phenomenal reviews. It's getting early Game of the Year buzz. And a lot of people are noticing it's one of the best RPGs in a while. So I did kind of want to just go over some of the accolades that it's hitting real quick. And then we'll dive more into the studio that's made it and the game itself. And this comes from GameIndustry.biz. It says, Sandfall's Interactive Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has captivated fans of Japanese RPG. While the French studio was clearly inspired by genre greats like Final Fantasy X and Lost Odyssey with its debut, it arguably gets closer to the feel of those games than publisher and genre specialist Square Enix itself has managed in recent years. A glowing critical reception has translated into huge sales, with the game hitting 1 million copies sold in 3 days, despite also being available on Xbox Game Pass subscribers on PC and Xbox. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a certified hit, officially selling more than 1 million copies. Reese Elliott, head of market analysis at Alena Analytics, tells GameIndustry.biz. The announcement didn't say players reach, which a lot of places say players reach. Yeah, it's actually copies sold, and that was a choice, and I applaud the transparency. The bigger story, though, might be in how well it's selling versus other games in its genre. According to Alena Analytics data, the game has sold more than 785,000 copies on Steam in its first week, more than twice the sales of any recent comparable games in the Japanese RPG style, including last year's acclaimed Atlas title, Metaphor Refantasio. Now, I actually want to update that because this article is a tad bit old. As of right now, it's sold over 2 million copies in 12 days, which is hugely impressive. So before we dive any further, I mean, it's fantastic what this game's doing, and I know we had our eyes on it. You definitely were buzzed about this game. Is this something that you even saw coming. I mean, it's welcome news, and I'm so glad that it's doing as well as it is, especially that it's on the Game Pass. But this is kind of one of a kind thing for a game like this to hit. Especially, I mean, I know there's some data between Metaphor and this game, but I like that it's able to come out and do very well. I don't want to say against, but compared to a game like Metaphor.
No, yeah, and they're two completely different experiences for different people. Again, one's a little more anime take than what this is, but I am surprised at how well it's doing because it deserves to do that well. I know when this game was coming out and it was getting a little closer, I didn't watch any trailers, I didn't want to see any more gameplay or anything, I kind of just didn't want to see anything, so I was like, okay, I'll wait to see, and I'm not like reading reviews, but I like to kind of gauge people's scores. I'm like, I want to see what these scores are, because this game almost looks too good to be true.
Yeah.
With how beautiful and just everything gets done right. And this game absolutely delivered front to back. It's just absolutely insane. And I would say, too, that something like this, and I said the same thing with like Metaphor and Fantasio, like if you're an Xbox player who was feeling the drought of RPGs because we didn't get like Final Fantasy 7 or 16, we had stuff that is just as good, if not better, in these games that I think Square Enix really, especially moving forward, needs to step up whatever it is that they're doing, because these last two from these other studios have absolutely killed it. Not to mention, on top of the fact that you also have like RGG Studios with their Like a Dragon series now being and also doing really well for an RPG series for what was traditionally a fighter, that it's almost like Square Enix seems like they're lacking a little bit, because I know people like 16, but I've heard that it's lackluster, and I feel like 7 is really only doing well because people just love 7 based off of the classic game. They love that world, they love those characters, they love everything. Not, we love this new version. It's, you love what they've turned it into, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that it is a game that again, Xboxers can jump on it day one on Game Pass.
Game Pass is huge for it.
Yeah, the fact that it's just doing so well is great. So as well as it's doing, I think we've got to dive. I mean, we'll dive into the game and everything like that. But I do want to just show some background into the studio, because it's very impressive of what they've done. It's a new development team, and they really came out swinging. So I think it's very fair to recognize them. And I do want to just take a second and kind of read to give you a background if you weren't sure where these guys kind of came from. And I'm going to butcher his name. Guilherme Brochet. Brochet or Broche? I'm going to call him, I'm going to say Broche from now on. So Broche, an employee of Ubisoft around 2020, originated the idea. Broche had an idea based on one of his childhood favorites, the Final Fantasy series. He sent out some requests for help to craft a demo to a group of other developers he knew, as well as posts on Reddit. With the demo, Broche was able to secure funding from Kepler Interactive and subsequently left Ubisoft to form Sandfall Interactive with a core team of about 30 developers, including about 12 fellow developers from Ubisoft. Some of the voice actors for the demo gained more prominent roles in development, such as Jennifer Svedberg-Yen, a voice actor that became the game's lead writer. Lorian Testard, the composer, was discovered through posts on SoundCloud. The funding was also allowed Sandfall to bring in about 50 additional developers through outsourcing, as well as to pay for professional voice actors, including Charlie Cox, Andy Serkis, and Ben Starr. Broche said one of the goals for Clair Obscur was to create a high-fidelity turn-based RPG, which he felt had been neglected by the AAA game developers. Besides Final Fantasy, Clair Obscur took inspiration from other Japanese role-playing games, including the Persona series. Broche also considered Lost Odyssey and Blue Dragon JRPGs developed for Microsoft's drive to bring the Xbox consoles to Japan as an influence, particularly their use of QuickTime events during combat. According to producer Francois Mercier, the game drew inspiration from Squaresoft's Final Fantasy 8, 9, and 10 in particular, while the dodge and parry mechanics were influenced by From Software's Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, which it's just, I gotta give a big shout out to that, because one, to come up with an idea that's definitely a throwback to the games you want is great, and then to leave a position of a big studio like Ubisoft and kind of build a brand new team, you don't see that every day, especially when you're gonna come out with this kind of hit, because we're living in this time right now where studios are closing, left and right, and I just kind of want to make it clear that there is something that has to do with having the right people in the right development studio, because you can tell that these guys do have the secret sauce to make this, because you can look at things like Rockstar, who make GTA and Red Dead. It's the guys there that make it good. But then you can look on the other hand, BioWare. It's not just the name that makes it; it's the talent. Where BioWare used to be known to make KOTOR, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, it's not the same crew anymore. So these guys definitely have something that's extremely special. So I did want to give their moment, give them their flowers. So was there anything else you wanted to add or anything you wanted to point out about the team?
No, they've done an amazing job. And what's crazy too is, like you pointed out, like some of these people they randomly found on like Reddit and this and that.
There are other people.
And not to mention, this is as a first studio. This is their first game. These people like working together to knock it out. Like this game is an absolute home run. I could say up front, I don't think there's going to be anything better that I'm going to play this year. This is already my game of the year. I don't think there could be anything that would top this.
Yeah, I think it's insane. And it just kind of goes to show that it's like, dude, stick to the basics. Stick to what you know. Improve on certain things. Borrow from things. And make it good. It's just, this, I don't want to say, is a slap in the face from other developers that are making these games, whether they be, I mean, this game it came out with a few bugs and it's been patched at this point, but like there's all these other studios with recognition, especially when you look at games like Assassin's Creed Shadows, and that just was felt more of the same, no real innovation, where this studio took its time. They've been running around for this game since 2020, so it came out in 2025. And they dropped a bomber, man. So it's just like, at this point, what's the excuse for all these other companies, all these other development teams that have way more money and making more of the same? Where these guys, again, they borrow from everything. It's not 100% original, but what it did when it combined everything is made something extremely special and spectacular that stands out amongst JRPGs, especially in the same time that Oblivion just dropped, which we'll get into a little bit later. But it's like they're standing toe-to-toe, neck and neck with one of the greats of all time. And I'd argue coming out the winner.
Yeah, I was going to say, too, I think, I totally agree. Like, it doesn't always have to be a reinvention of the wheel. Sometimes the wheel's perfect, and you just need to, bring it in and make it just a little bit tighter.
Add rims, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you take, people will say some of the mechanics or whatever from Square Enix. I like to throw out Legend of Dragoon. Yep. Very, feels kind of like that, but that game's older, brings that to a modern thing. You can even tell where they're, it's more obvious for me. I don't know how it is for you when you're playing. But when you're playing, do you ever know some of these things? You're like, man, this feels very From Software. Like when you're playing Elden Ring and how over the top some of these bosses are introduced and how crazy they are, especially with their phases and the attacks and stuff. Like it comes off as very Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Sekiro. So they took something that they love too and just threw it in and perfected it and made it their own take on it, and it came out phenomenal.
Yeah, you could definitely tell there's DNA from a lot of other great classic games. And I like that it's not just JRPGs. Like you're pointing out, there's things from Souls that you can see in there. Obviously, they took things from Sekiro, and I think that's just the recognition of a great studio that has the foresight to go, hey, let's make everything as good. Now, the only question I want to ask, and we'll dive into the game and what we like about it, pros and cons, but do you think this is the team to keep an eye on and it's going to keep making great games, or do you think maybe this is a chance of a lightning in a bottle, one-hit wonder type of scenario?
With how good this is, I don't think that it's lightning in a bottle. I think it is lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, this game is, but they got more in them.
I think that they definitely have more in them. I think they could be one of those teams like From Software where every game just gets progressively better and you're just cranking out bangers.
I'd be interested too because they obviously hit a niche of JRPG in the West that is fantastic for players. And there's nothing wrong if they want to stick doing with JRPG type games. I would love it, but in terms of what is offered in the game, and we'll dive into some of more of the mechanics with the action and the platforming. If their next game was more kind of an action RPG, I would love that. Stick to the RPG because obviously they're doing it well. I would like to see them do maybe different types of RPGs, but I'm more than happy if the next one is something similar to this.
I want to see what their next story is going to be personally for me, and maybe we'll see how you feel at the end with some of the big revelations and what's going on, is I do not want a sequel to this game.
Okay.
I feel like this game is perfect, standalone, the way that it ends.
How about DLC? Do you think there's room to add some side things, or just it's a perfect package?
You could, and maybe if you do prequel, I don't want to add on to the ending. Okay. I want it to end the way that it ended, and then move on to the next project. And you could do something similar. Use the same mechanics, the same way they did with Metaphor between Persona or something like that. You could use everything you've already built upon and just do a different story and go in a different direction. I feel like this game is just a standalone perfect game that I would prefer. If you just made this one like this, I would be 100% at peace with that.
And I mean, obviously, there's no excuse not to play it, I guess, unless you're on the Switch, because I don't even think it's full price on PlayStation. I think it's still a $40-$50 game.
Yeah,
something like that.
It's
so
got
if you have
great
got Game Pass,
pricing.
do it. If you're planning on PlayStation, anything else about the studio or I mean the awesomeness they were able to hit? Or do you want to dive more into the game now?
What were you gonna say about Oblivion?
Oh, I was just saying, because it came out in this point where there's two great RPGs at this time right now, and Oblivion was on everyone's mind going, man, this remake is fantastic, but to see something that's been great remade and everyone was looking forward to it for decades now, this game comes out, and I don't want to say steals the spotlight, but it can stand toe-to-toe with one of the greatest RPGs of all time.
I seen an article, but I was busy at work, so I kind of seen it in passing with them saying like, Oblivion actually coming out really helped us out a lot. And then when I was kind of thinking about it like that, it didn't occur to me until now when we were talking about sales and stuff. That I was like, man, I wonder what they meant, and I kind of wish I would have gone back to read it. But from my understanding, I think something that really would have helped is how many people signed up for Game Pass for Oblivion that didn't have Game Pass before, and they're like, well, there's other games on here, and this is front and center. I already have Game Pass. Let me see what this is all about.
Nice, yeah, that's actually...
So, because how many people would have just signed up for this name alone? I'm sure you had some. More people would have signed up for Oblivion, and because they're a week apart, obviously your Game Pass is going to carry over. Well, this is on here, so I'm going to check this out. I even had my brothers ask me, like, hey, I see this on here, and it looks really good. What can you tell me about it? Like, do you think I'll like it? And I'm like, I don't think you guys will, because you're not into the turn-based, like, RPGs or whatever. But even people who only play, like, shooters and Call of Duty and maybe, like, a little Elden Ring or something were asking me about this game because it was on Game Pass and readily available for people to see.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because, yeah, jumping on, again, if you're not in the weeds like we are and follow things like this, seeing the name, again, I don't think you ever had an issue. The name doesn't really lend itself to be like, oh, Clair Obscur Expedition 33. It's like, what is this about? Well, this could be about anything,
Metaphor
really.
Fantasia.
Yeah, so, the fact that you get your eyes in front of it and see it, beautiful looking game, greatly casted, and, so kudos on them. And then, I think with that, we'll kind of dive more into the game and kind of get our thoughts on it. So, just to get into the premise so you guys know what the game is actually about. It takes place in a dark fantasy Belle Epoch setting every year for the past...
Epoch. It's either like Epoch or Epoch or something.
Yeah, Epoch.
I say Epoch, though.
Epoch. Hey, Tupac. Every year for the past 67 years, the people of the isolated island of Lumiere have suffered an event called... Is it the Gommage?
Yeah, Gommage.
Or the Gommage, where a goddess known as the Paintress paints an ever-decreasing number, and all humans with an age above the number disappear. Every year after the Gommage, Lumiere sends an expedition of volunteers to head to the mainland in an effort to slay the Paintress before she can paint a new number. Expedition 33 is the latest to set out, because it was kind of curious of what Expedition 33 meant. The premise is fantastic. I don't want to say it's original, but I can't really think of anything else that kind of mirrors it. It's definitely unique. It's extremely personal when you have this ever-looming threat that everyone can get wiped out year by year by year, and now they're up to Expedition 33, and people have lost people every year. So even the beginning of the game kind of quickly addresses how much this means to everybody. So plot alone, I mean, I found it fantastic. I can't dive too much into it because I don't know how much it goes further past that. Andrew's beating it without spoilers. I mean, how much more does it evolve from that?
No, it completely changes to like what I thought it was going to be. And at first I was like, maybe I don't know that I care for this as much, and maybe it ruins it for me. But then I just slid back in. I'm like, no, like this is just great. Like it makes sense now. And when you play this game is extremely depressing. It's depressing off the rip, just the way these people live their lives. And I was even thinking about it too, because I've been kind of going through some things too, because I have a kid coming on the way, so I'm like, maybe like I'm old now too. And then when I'm playing this, they're like, that's one of the first things one of the characters says, Mael to Gustav, is like, oh, you're an old man. He's like, oh, well, yeah, I am 33. He's like, I'm ancient. And it's like, what a crazy thing to think, because that's the oldest people there are gonna only be 33 years old. I'm like, man, what a wild,
cool story, man. Excellent. So with that being said, I just kind of want to go over the characters that are in it. There aren't many, but they are all extremely memorable. At the point I'm at, I now have everybody, or at least I've been introduced to everybody. You have Gustav, which is voiced by Charlie Cox. You have Mael by Jennifer English. You have Lune, who's by Kirsty Ryder. You have, what was we going to say it was? Sael by Shayla Nix. And am I missing anybody? And then eventually you get to meet Renoir, who's brilliantly voiced by Andy Circus, and then a little later in the game you meet Verso, who's voiced by Ben Starr, and then you get to meet you're kind of traveling your ship, I guess, for the purpose of the overworld map, Monaco.
No, the traveling guy, that's Esquier.
Esquier. Which one's Monaco or Monaco?
If you don't know who that is,
no, never mind. Monaco is the guy with the legs.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I was getting them mixed up. Yeah. So he's gonna be one of your main party members who knows Verso, and then you get to meet Esquier, who is the traveler. And then this place is filled with these creatures called Gestrels, they're just created by the paintress. Does that lore get any deeper the further you get into the story?
They explain where the enemies are called like Nevrons, and then you have these other inhabitants called like Gestrels. They explain where they come from and like what their purpose is and why they're there.
Okay, cool, yeah. So those are all the characters, and then getting into and we'll get into kind of the combat in a second. Is there anything else you want to talk about them, or any of the voice acting? I mean,
the voice acting's good. I love all the designs. I don't think there's a bad design among them. And actually, at first, when I first seen the trailer, I'm like, dude, SK looks stupid. Like, this guy's just doing whatever he's doing.
Like Baymax.
And and I was like, oh man, this is one of my favorite people after playing this game. But before that, I was like, man, this guy just looks dumb. But no, I love all the characters. And it's hard sometimes when you play a game that has an expanded cast to want to like everybody, or you tend to lean towards like favorites, and I did lean towards my favorites, but still there's all these other people, and like every chance I get I'm trying to engage with you, versus sometimes when there's downtime and your people around like a campfire or whatever, maybe on another game, I'm like, okay, I don't care for you, so I don't want to talk about your story. I'm gonna go talk to these people and then try to progress the story as much as I can. Like, I was trying to spend as much time with everybody as I could.
Yeah, and what's cool too is when you finally open up the camp and you're able to talk to everybody, I feel that's a really good point with some of the character building and the development. There are certain things you can do with character relationships. Is it a spoiler to dive into what that actually does at all in the game? Because I've gotten my characters at like relationship 3, but I don't know if that really helps anything with combat, or is it just moving along their storyline?
It moves along their storyline, and there's some missions to go with it, but there are relationship, I guess slight spoiler, there's relationship love-wise between people that can alter certain elements of the game, not in a big way, but between just your party and these like little side missions that you're doing.
Okay, perfect. So anything else about the characters? I mean, we'll dive into more of their combat and stuff in a minute, but anything off the bat?
I don't think so. I do want to say...
Anybody you want to point out, shout out?
I was about to say, I do want to shout out Mael. Mael's my absolute favorite.
Okay.
But I believe in the game she's only 15, and so it is nice to have somebody that young in the game on this adventure, because she has a skewed view of what everybody else kind of has seen, where other people are... where she's more yearning for adventure and just wants to get out there and live, where these other people have lived, and they're like, well, I do want to keep going. She's I already at her point in life, I've seen too many people go that I just want to try to stop this. So versus people are assigned expeditions or chosen for expeditions, she's a volunteer to go on this expedition.
I always would have thought more people would volunteer on these things. It's like, if you can have the numbers, why you're certainly sending the oldest people out?
Without spoiling it off the rip, you from that first encounter with everything, you could definitely understand why. There's a reason for whatever. Yeah. And I do want to give it a shout. There's tons of not other characters that you meet, but you do learn a lot about these other people through, I forget what they're called, but you find them, they're essentially like journals or like glowing orbs. Mm-hmm. And so finding out about all these other expeditions and what happened to them is some of my absolute favorite stuff, because some of it is just absolutely hilarious. Have you found any of the funny ones?
I've actually restarted the game and I've been playing it again. My other game I was further, so I had more, and there were some good ones, but like there's how many are there? Obviously, it's 30. It's more than just...
I think there's like 80 journals.
Yeah. Yeah, so... if I mean an example of which one in particular?
I think like one of the first ones is... I think they're like... Before you get to Nevron, he's talking about mushrooms. And one of the groups is like... We shouldn't have trusted that stupid idiot, because now we're all sick and whatever. And because they eat the mushrooms and it's poisoning them. And then later on you find another journal and like... And one of the other guys who isn't with them right away is like, oh, they're not looking too good. You know what? You know what really cures everything is some nice mushroom soup. So he's just poisoning everyone inadvertently by feeding them these mushrooms.
Yeah, I've listened to a few, but I've been I kind of just been passing them up. But if they are as good as that, then yeah, I'll start checking them out.
The best one you find between a couple teams is like later on. There's these ones that like forget the expedition. We're not about that. We're about killing Nevrons, and the only way to do it is to be naked, just you and your weapon, and that's it. You have to embrace everything full life, so it's just this group of people just running around with nothing on, just trying to fight absolutely everything. And it's just, if you get a chance when you play it, and you weren't looking for them, look for the journals. There's some really sad ones, there's some really, really good ones, but there's so many that are just so funny.
Is it an achievement to get them all?
There is.
Fuck, so I do gotta go back and get them all then. Alright guys, so with that then, let's move into the traveling and the exploration. The areas that you kind of run into, I wouldn't say are linear per se, but it is generally like an A to B when you're playing on the smaller part with the team, and it does have a lot of exploration, and you should be searching everywhere, like Andrew was saying. I was doing a lot more on my first playthrough, but now that I've restarted it, I was kind of just trying to get to where I was, but this is where you're going to find a lot of chroma, your pictos, your tints, different items. The game actually encourages a lot of exploration. It encourages you to do it, but it's not necessarily required, because once you get out of your smaller kind of area A to B, it opens up into your world map, which you can actually see certain symbols on your map that you can go check out, you can go explore, but it's not necessarily required. Once you get there, however, it will come up with the name. There is a banner system which you kind of find out are set up by past expeditions. It's like old camps.
I love that. That's
old
so cool.
campsites. I thought, because what I didn't notice is there's different numbers on the flag. So it took me a minute to be like, oh, this is from them, this is from them. So that's really cool. And then just keep in mind that is kind of their fast travel system. So once you're in an area, the more banners you find, the more campsites you find, you can then travel back and forth between that. And then obviously SK, right? SKA. When you're in the open world, he's going to act as your ship, starting off being able to kind of walk around faster and move through things, break through rocks. He's eventually going to be able to swim, and then he'll act as your airship eventually to fly. Is there anything else about the traveling or the world that you want to add?
I do love the way they did the world.
I think it's fantastic,
because you have it's not open world, but you do have your overall overworld like classic Final Fantasies, and then when you go into each area, they're big, but they're not too big. It's almost like
enough.
It's almost like Final Fantasy 12 size, I think, was the best comparison I was thinking in my head playing it, to where I loved it. In every area, there's some that are maybe just a little similar, but not too much. But almost every area that you go into is extremely different, with different like creatures in there, but even just different themes, as far as like you'll be in like a red forest, now there's a gold one, but you see how that affects the environment. You can go into snow areas,
underwater,
dark caves, underwater. So there's just all these different elements of all these areas that you're going to that are, and they're all beautiful. Beautifully crafted. Some of them, what I really like that they added is you walk into them, and it's not so much that you're supposed to explore it, but it's just a beautiful setting. Have you been in any of those?
Yeah, but you can just see the back, and it's just, and you just want to stand there and stare.
Yeah, and it's just playing music, and usually you'll grab a collectible and you leave, and that's really all there is to do. But I find myself sitting in there sometimes, like just listening to the music, and I'm like, man, like this place just looks great. Like I'm sitting here just staring off into nowhere, and sometimes you'll see other stuff that's in the background as a part of this, but it's almost like that classic rendered backgrounds with 3D rendered backgrounds that they like do, and it's so good.
Yeah, even the campsite, you could be sitting out looking at the ocean, you see the big 33 in the distance. Yes. And so that's kind of cool. I should mention too, in the campsite, eventually you will be able to meet someone that can upgrade your weapons and your Lumina points, and then as well as, what does the guy in the back do? I kind of ran into him. He wants you to collect like shadows or something. There's another dude that's in the camp that's in the back. He's a big fat dude. He looks like a chef.
Oh no, he wants you to find the missing guest rolls.
The missing guest. Okay, because I didn't even realize, because the camp is it's a big enough. I do wish the camp was like 5 different settings, because it's all kind of
one.
Yeah, I wish it was a little different. But I didn't even know that dude was back there, and I ran back around, because certain people will show up in your camp as the game progresses. So I ran into him, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know he was in there the first time until after. Is he a cool guy?
I didn't know that guy was there till almost the end of the game. Okay. Because he's off in like...
So there you go. Check it out.
There's one pathway that you walk past a bunch, because there's someone else there that levels up your stuff. So you have to walk past it. But it's a little like dark. And it's just like a separate little hallway that you walk through in this area. And I didn't know that guy was there. And for the longest time, I'm running around the world. There's like these blue mountain boulder style things that are in your way. And I'm like, bro, I cannot get past these. And I'm getting towards the end of the game. I'm like, at what point am I supposed to get the skill to break open this thing? So I'm skipping a bunch of them. And I literally was in like my final maybe like 5 hours of gameplay when I was like, okay, I'm supposed to turn these guys in for an achievement. Where am I finding this dude? So I go to get him, and he gives you the ability to break those things. And I'm like, bro, I should have had that forever ago at the start of the game, like almost definitely before you meet SKA, and I had no clue that guy was there.
That's funny. So there you go. So because I didn't find him on my first game through, and then the second one I ran into him like, oh, who's this guy? So. I did want to point out too before we'll get into the combat is there's a lot of action things you can do. You can actually run around, you can stun enemies as you're running around the map, you can do first strikes as long as you're able to get that, and there's quite a bit of platforming. So I do want to say that it's not just kind of running around doing turn-based combat. There's a lot of kind of things when you are traveling that lets you get into certain things, certain enemies you can find and things like that. Ready to get into combat?
Yeah.
I think this is obviously where it shines. So the combat is exceptional, and one of the cool things is every character fights differently. They all have their own weapon that they can use, and then when you go into their skill trees, they all have different abilities that you're able to do. And obviously what's really cool about that is you're able to build certain teams, because what you can do is actually you can take out everybody and play one person. You can play 2 people, you can play 3. If your party does get wiped, anybody that's in reserve can come back and then they can finish the battle for you. So it lends itself to a bunch of custom builds with characters, and you can kind of mix and match of how you want to play it. Obviously the biggest part of this game is this Picto and Lumina system, where you find these certain abilities, you equip them onto a character, you can hold up to 3. You need to be in 4 fights before you're able to master it. Once it's mastered, any character has access to it, assuming that they have the allowed points to do it. So when you click into your Lumina section, you're able to have a certain amount of points. The Pictos that you've unlocked, it does sound kind of confusing, but they have a number value, and then you use that into your Luminas, and then you can start building up certain characters with cool abilities that will add burn, that'll add mark, which will add bigger damage to critical. I've got to say, for a turn-based combat game, a lot of times just doing a cool skill system with each character, like your magic attacks and things like that, is awesome. The fact that they were able to bring in a customization system that you can really spec and make each character unique is, again, not something that's the first time it's ever done or original, but done correctly in a game that utilizes it brilliantly. And this is what the talk of the town about right now is the combat, as well as when the characters fight and they do certain abilities. It keeps you engaged in kind of a timed hit. You can get perfect hits, which I think is kind of like Mario RPG with timed hits and things like that, which keeps you engaged instead of just sitting back and letting combat kind of handle itself. So I can't gush more about the combat. Andrew's obviously beaten it. He's mastered it. Anything else you want to add on the combat and where it shines, and or any tips or hints for anybody?
I would say I love that it takes it a step further too, because it's not just offensively that you have to do like the QTE. Defensively, you can either choose to dodge, which gives you a much wider margin for error, or you can parry, which is a lot tighter. And I do love that they do have so if an enemy attacks 3 times, you have to parry all 3. And once you parry all 3, however many times they attack, sometimes it's just 1, whatever. If you parry all 3, then you'll do a counter attack, which does a set amount of damage too, and sometimes even more because you're doing the counter, or you can knock the enemy down, break them, whatever. So it's nice that it feels like you're doing something at all times.
Yeah.
But I do love that each character has their own playstyle. You could build them absolutely however you want to. You could build a tank. You could just build support, defense, offensive, whatever you want to do. I think what I like the most too is then you take that a step further, and all of it doesn't feel overwhelming either, because you even with the skill trees, you only get 6 abilities, so you don't get 40 abilities. You don't have to sit here and cycle through everything. You only have a set amount, so it's pretty simplified too. But taking it a step further, certain people can get for their playstyle have certain styles. So Mael's like a fencer, but depending on her stance, she'll either do more damage, take more damage, but deal do 50% damage, or there's a defensive one where her defense is a little bit higher, so she could take the damage. Or if you have Lune, when you use a fire spell, you build up a fire counter, water counter, whatever. And then certain other spells that you do, you can consume these counters to make your attack stronger. If you didn't have them, you just do the attack and that's fine. But if you have enough of these counters, it will make your damage be increased. And I personally like the little AP gauge that's on there for how you decide who can do what at what times and stuff.
Yeah.
It's very easy to... I don't want to say it feels overwhelming at first, because I didn't feel like it was.
Take your time. Learn it, play with it, but take your time with it.
I think the biggest tip that I'd recommend too is definitely take your time. Like you said, take your time figuring out what each character does, which you feel more comfortable with, because some people aren't good at pairing. So if you're not good at pairing, don't even bother. You could just dodge the whole time and go from there. But also decide what playstyle you think is going to be the best for you. Because again, like I said, you could be full offensive, you could be full defensive with one offensive person. You can even have somebody just sit there and try to draw all the attention onto them and have their health be up, while your other guys are just attacking.
Yeah, because, I mean, again, this game just offers so many things. Because, again, the combat is just where this thing shines. Andrew points out, like, what you're doing defensively, what you're doing offensively. Every person has different directions they can do with skills. So they utilize a lot. And then, plus, we didn't mention their weapons. You can find things to level up their weapons, which will not only boost up their abilities, whatever ability is tied to it, but it'll unlock certain skills that the weapon is able to do, which makes it even more fun. So, I mean, we could do a whole episode of just breaking down builds and combat for that, but I gotta say, this is where the game shines. And again, as intimidating as it might seem, because there's a lot at first, but again, take your time with it, understand what it does, see what kind of combos you want to build off of, and the next thing you know, you're gonna be slicing through guys.
And do the tutorials for each character, because every time you first meet somebody, it gives you a tutorial on how their combat works. Because some of them, like Ciel's, I felt was a little confusing for me at first, and then after I did the tutorial and then played with her a little bit, like it kind of it like clicked for me. But it does give you an option for each person, and it will break down exactly how it is ideally you should be playing them, and then for you, it's up to you to kind of build off of that.
Yeah. So with that, I just kind of we're running along. I just wanted to point out a couple pros and cons that I had for the game. Then add on anything else you want to add on. For as far as the cons go, and again, they are patching things in, so maybe by now even some of this is fixed. The biggest thing is there's no manual save states. The game will auto save, and eventually, the game can only hold so many auto saves. But it'd be nice to be able to save, particularly before a certain event, so that you can go back manually and kind of figure some things out. Because one of the things that I want, when I restarted it, is there's a certain weapon I wanted at the arena, but I was so far ahead with my other character that the save file didn't go back far enough. So if I wanted that weapon, I did have to restart the game. So I do think that is something that would have made the game one less complaint. I don't like, even though I don't know how much you need it, there's a lot of things you're going to collect. The fact that you can't sell items, because like right now I'm on the hunt to get 90,000 chrome up or something. It'd be nice to be able to sell my extra weapons and things like that.
I think what it does, because I didn't notice it until later on, is once you get duplicates of stuff, it breaks it down automatically for you, and it gives you the chrome for it.
But still, if I don't want it, I should be able to get rid of it.
Yeah, off the rip, because there are some that you're like, I don't care for this.
And then my last thing would be, because again, when I was trying to play it earlier, I couldn't play back-to-back. I like putting in big sessions. I wouldn't pick it up for another 2 or 3 days. I understand kind of maybe the Souls aspect of it. I would like an objective marker, because when I didn't play it for a couple days, I kind of forgot where I was, what I was doing, and there's enough twists and turns in some of the areas where you can get turned around. So I think for me, that's kind of it. And again, those aren't really big gripes. I mean, they're more selfish than it does affect the game. So was there any negatives you had at all for the game?
I don't think that I had any. I think my only negative is some of the achievements that you're doing later on. You have to do some like stuff with the guest rolls, and there's like little it's almost like a parkour thing or whatever. And whoever built the one off that rip-off game Only Up, where you have to climb to the giant top of this thing, you're an asshole. Because that one, I fell like 4 different times because she's just not grabbing this thing. I'm like, dude, that was my one negative experience.
Yeah, the platform's a little choppy.
Other than that, now as far as the pros go, one, the music, absolutely beautiful.
I have pros for the music, for sure.
Yeah, make sure you play, if you play with a headset or just through your TV, but don't have like a podcast or something on, because the music everywhere you go is absolutely amazing. And I did want to throw in another thing. One of my favorite things too, the final pro, is I think this game really respects your time as far as how simple some of the things are. Like Craig was saying earlier, when you have a Picto, let's say mine is boost your health by 1,000. You put it on your character. Once you win 4 battles, anyone else could use it. Or if you took it off and put it on another person, you could do 1 with them, win 2 with them, and then 1 with a third person. By the 4th one, it is upgraded, and then anyone could also use it without taking it off that person, provided the Lumina points. And I'm like, dude, I love something that just absolutely respects your time. They totally could have made that one of those things like, well, once it hits this level, and once it hits that level, and you got to grind it out or something like that, or after 100 fights or 20, especially because you're fighting a lot. But no, they're just like, simple is just best, and it was just nice and easy. And I'm like, dude, it's just something that I really felt. That's something I talk about a lot lately, is just playing these things that I feel like don't respect your time. And on this, I don't feel like any of mine was wasted.
And same with XP too. Without having to swap your characters out and do character grinds.
That's the best.
I mean, everyone's going to get XP, so yeah. And then again, respect your time, the length. I mean, it's a game you can play and lose yourself in, but the average person's clocking it. I mean, if you put it on higher difficulty, that will change. But you can cruise through the game in about, 25 to 30 hours? That's not bad.
Yeah, I finished it 100% with a broken build at 25 hours.
Nice.
Or maybe it's 27, but...
That's kind of our review and our first take on it, and a shout out and a praise to the team and the game. That's all I've got to say on it. Was there anything else you want to add for a closer?
No, get out there and get it. Game's 10 out of 10 good.
Definitely play it, guys. So if you have played it, and you leave your thoughts down below. So with that out of the way, guys, you made it to the end of the episode. So we're going to get into... What are you up to? When Andrew and I take a second, talk about what we've been doing, what we've been playing, what we've been watching. Now, I'll go first just because I haven't been playing really much of anything outside of E33s, which is what the kids are calling it at home.
It's funny because I feel like you're watching more and I'm playing more, so at least we're getting...
So yeah, I did watch a bunch of shows and movies over this past couple of weeks because that's kind of what my time was at. But the one thing I will point out is that I did go see Thunderbolts, which is... it was a good movie. Obviously, Marvel hasn't really been in the best spot recently, especially coming after the last Captain America. I know it really didn't do so hot. A lot of people have been nervous about what they're going to be doing with Thunderbolts, how they're going to work in the villain. I would say it's a solid movie. It's worth watching. It's a step moving forward in the right direction, where I know I've been a tad bit nervous going, okay, well, if the last couple have been stinkers, how's Fantastic Four going to do? How's the next Secret Wars going to do? Thunderbolts did a really good job, and I know there have been things kind of spoiling certain things popping up on social media involving characters and names and things like that, so I'm not going to ruin anything for you. I would say definitely try to get a chance to check it out in theater. If you do see it in theater, there are 2 post-credit scenes. Make sure you watch those. And I would say this, it doesn't deal with the villain in the typical sense. It kind of, and I won't get into how, so it's not really fight the bad guy at the end, overcome the day, win. It's got a different type of look at how dealing with certain things can be handled. I will say, some of the action in the movie, fantastic, dude. Fantastic things, especially you've seen in the trailer with Bucky stopping the tanks and things like that. But there's definitely some fight scenes at the end. And I would say this, I thought it was hilarious, man. What they do with Red Guardian and a few of the other characters' interactions, it's great. If things have got ruined for you, sorry, and that's the world we live in. But if you get a chance to go see it and you were hesitant about it, I thought it was actually a pretty good movie. And I'm now looking forward to more of what Marvel has been doing and what will come. So that's what I've been up to.
Me, after 100% in Clair Obscur, I did start my Oblivion run back up, because I kind of, before the game came out, I didn't want to get too far, so I just started doing my, base character. I'm an elf this time, and, I'm kind of going, light armor, because I always go, heavy armor, and I usually always go Argonian, because I feel like it's just easier, because you can breathe and you don't get sick or anything. So I'm just trying out some different stuff. I'm using, more magic, which I don't remember, using so much on this. And right now, I'm just kind of cruising through the story. I think I want to try to hammer out the story before I do anything else, and I'll probably save, the guilds for the last one. So right now, I'm loving it so far. We talked on our last episode, the game had, barely dropped. It's so good, and it looks so good, and it feels good to play. It still has that charm there. I'm loving it, and I'm having so much fun. I'm glad that I did Clair Obscur and then jumped into this.
Yeah, that's probably a better way to go then, I would say.
Yeah, with how depressing that game is, as much as I love it, this is just so much more lighthearted and funny with whatever's going on in it, and I just want to knock this thing out before Doom comes out next week. So.
Yeah, well, because usually I play an Imperial, because I always like the Speechcraft, playing the human, but Geno said he played an Argonian, and he wanted to play twins, so I made an Argonian for him, so I've been playing on that, yeah, and I'm not going to play anything else until I'm done with E33, but by that time, I might want to put it on Oblivion on the back burner, because, yeah, Doom's going to come out
for Doom.
Yeah, and I know we're going to definitely dive into that, so... Guys, thank you for listening to our thoughts on Expedition 33, guys. That is the end of Expedition 214 of episode 214.
Expedition 214.
Join us next time for Expedition 215, guys. And until next time, my name is Craig Perales. That is Mandrew Montemare. Cheers.
Don't gamage.